Welcome to A Magical Life, Health, Wealth and Weight Loss. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, lead practitioner at Holistic Natural Health Australia and #1 best-selling author. In this podcast, I aim to give you practical tips on how to accelerate and sustain your health, increase your financial, spiritual and emotional wealth, and to look at something that haunts many of us needlessly, weight loss. Now, sit back and enjoy, because it is time for you to create and truly discover a magical life. Welcome back to A Magical Life. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, and today Joel Evan is my guest. Joel is a health coach and integrative health practitioner that helps his clients get to the root cause of their issues, whether it's weight loss, gut health, or even some more serious autoimmune conditions, so that they can start living the best version of themselves. Joel is also the host of the Hacked Life podcast, where he's had the chance to sit down with some of the leading health experts in the world, such as Dave Asprey, James Altucher, and Dr. John Jaquish. Joel's motto is live healthy, live happy. He was a first responder for 15 years before transitioning to a full-time coach, and now he brings us his passion for integrative health. Welcome, Joel.
All right. Thank you for having me on the show, Magic. I'm so excited.
I'm excited to have you here because you're definitely talking what I talk every day, and I really love that. So what I'm going to do is ask you my standard guest questions. Everyone gives me different answers. I'm really excited to hear yours. So your first is, what can your expertise do to accelerate health? Not just physical health, but also emotional and spiritual health.
Yeah, great question. So here's the way I look at the body. The body, first of all, the body is amazing. The body is perfect the way it was created. And really what we're doing in the world is we're just interfering with it. The more I've learned about health and just longevity and anti-aging and all these cool things, there's all these functional medicine things that people are doing, right? They're doing a testosterone replacement therapy. People are doing red light therapy and cryotherapy and cold plunges and saunas and electric stim therapy. And these are all fantastic devices. But the reality is you don't need any of those devices. And most people are just getting in the way. They are causing the interference that is getting in the way in their own health. And so really what I like to do with people is figure out what that interference is and remove it, right? And so a lot of us are just putting and piling more and more things in ourselves, and we probably need to take some stuff out. And so again, a lot of practitioners, holistic practitioners, and there's nothing wrong with it, they will over supplement their clientele, right? And I have nothing against supplements. There's supplements that I take, but I think that in general, we are over supplementing people, and we need to be asking ourselves, why is there a deficiency in the first place? What is causing that deficiency? And I can guarantee you it's a toxicity. A toxicity is causing that deficiency. So instead of over supplementing people, because for example, let's say they're low on zinc, they're just not getting enough. Well, instead of doing that, why don't we figure out what the deficiency in the body that is being created, remove that deficiency, and then we don't have to over supplement with zinc. We just give the body what it needs and it works on autopilot. I always say, if you give the body the right input, the body will heal on its own. It knows how to do it. It just needs the right input. So a lot of what I do, it's multifaceted, but it's a lot of mindset stuff, because a lot of my clients come to me with limiting beliefs, ideas that they're not good enough, all these things. They're not clear also. They're not clear about their values. They're not clear about their intentions, where they want to go. They don't know their mission, their North Star. And so when they don't even know that, it's like, how do you know where you want to go? Where's the roadmap? How are we going to get there? They don't know. And so a lot of times it's helping them see that roadmap and build that vision to whatever they want, whether it's health, or maybe it's transitioning in their career. A lot of people, by the way, come to me for health, right? And specifically holistic health reasons, and they want to get to the root cause of what their issues are. But believe it or not, a lot of times we end up talking about mindset. And I was also a life coach. So I bring a lot of that mindset aspect into my coaching, because I see emotional health, like you mentioned, early on, emotional health is such a huge component of actual physical or just regular well-being, in that we would say in the physical form manifesting, right? Not the mental. So a lot of it is mindset work. Of course, there's some physical things that we can do. And then again, it's about removing those deficiencies and figuring out what the root cause is so that they can be in optimal performance.
Definitely. Okay, so our second question is about wealth. Now, many people think wealth is just the financial, but it can also be personal and emotional wealth. So what are your top 3 tips to creating wealth?
Okay, this is a fantastic question. Now, I've been on my own journey through this myself, right? And so I've had a chance to interview a lot of really cool people that talk about manifestation. And I think that's a really big thing for people, right? When they want to create wealth, I think they get into this idea of like, everyone always quotes the famous Napoleon Hill book, right? Think and Grow Rich. And I think that's a huge thing. So creating that mindset around wealth, right? Most people, again, so I'd say the first thing people need to start doing is checking their money beliefs, their money mindsets. A lot of people, they're not going to be rich. They're not going to be wealthy because in the back of their subconscious mind, for whatever reason, they don't believe they should be wealthy, or they believe that wealth is evil. They believe that they're going to be, sorry, I got to say this, Magic, but they think that, they're going to be like Bill Gates, and Bill Gates is evil. So I don't want to be like him, because that's what they associate wealth being, or being someone that is living the rich life. That is evil. And so they, unbeknownst to them, they are sabotaging themselves on a regular basis. And so they're never going to attain that wealth with these money mindset blocks, that I would call it. So number one is you got to remove those blocks and then start cultivating what you do want, right? I love manifestation. I use a lot of visualizations and a lot of meditations, and I do that every morning. And so that's what a lot I do to prime my mind and also reprogram the subconscious. We just talked about how the subconscious, it will sabotage you if it's got bad programming. If you've got these, I don't want to say bad. I don't even think there is a good or bad, but if there's these ideas in your mind that you're not good enough, or you're not worthy enough to be rich, well, then we need to reprogram that. And so I think visualization and meditation, and I even like to use this really cool device called a brain tap. I don't know if you've ever heard about that or seen that, but a brain tap is it's a meditation device, and it flickers light on your eyes, and it also stimulates light through your ears. And then there's binaural beats and things that put your brain in certain states. And so what they've seen is that, especially if you're trying to create or manifest, being in an alpha or maybe even a theta state is a great way to help, reprogram that subconscious. So I like to do, so the second thing would be have some kind of meditation, visualization, meditation practice. And then the third thing that I would say for anybody that wants to cultivate wealth in their life is they need to study. They need to study, and they need to invest in mentors. I see so many people come to me and they refuse to invest. They really want all these things, but they'll never pay for mentors or coaches who have already done it. Like, go out there and find someone who's done what you really want and pay them. And most people won't do that, because guess what? They say things like they can't afford it. They say like, that's just too much. The reality is that's part of their money mindset block. The idea of money itself and not having enough is just a concept. It's just an idea. It's just a belief. And so when people start to realize that money is just energy, money is just currency, they'll start to see like what they give, they will get back. And so you got to work hard. You got to work hard, man. And I don't think a lot of people, they see the glamour, they see the people like the Gary V's and all the people out in the world, and it looks really glamorous. But when they start to test what that feels like to be, let's say, an entrepreneur lifestyles are very lonely. They're not fun. There's a lot of dark days. There's a lot of light days, but the dark days are the days where you ask yourself, can I keep going? Can I go on? Most people can't. And so you have to be persistent and consistent and attached to your vision the entire time. Otherwise, you're never going to get there.
Great answer there. Now, our final standard question is around weight. Have you ever battled your weight? If so, what was the trigger to win that battle? And what can you offer the listeners who might be on this journey?
So good. So interestingly enough, I call myself a holistic weight loss coach, and I've never battled weight myself. So some might say, well, who are you to be giving this advice? Well, here's the thing. I think the industry is filled with a lot of people that are giving you, like, again, quick diet schemes, right? Or protocols, or lose weight quickly. And we see from the studies, yeah, people do lose weight quickly, but then they gain it all back. And here's the other thing. How many people are doing, the latest fad diet, the ketos, the carnivores, and everything? Right now, some of those diets are working for people, but there's no long-term studies on them. And what we also see is that anybody that goes on these diets, I think the studies show, within 70% of people within 1 to 2 years are gaining all that weight back. And so they're just not sticky. The key for what people, and I alluded to it earlier, is the mindset piece. If they don't have a vision and they don't know where they're going, then there's no surprise when they hit a wall, they hit an obstacle, and they just go back into their old patterns, their old selves, because they haven't done the deep inner work. And so what I always tell people is, I'm not teaching you to lose weight. I'm teaching you to get healthy, and a healthy body can't be overweight. And so a lot of what we do is, again, I focus a lot on the mindset piece. I focus on their habits. Of course, I focus on nutrition and a little bit of exercise. Some of my clients can't exercise, and so we have to adapt and adjust for that. That's why I don't think exercise is everything. I love exercise, and I do it pretty consistently, almost probably 6 days a week, but I'm only working out, honestly, 10, 20 minutes a day. And people can't believe that. I'm like, well, I've been doing that for the last 9 years, because with the birth of my first son, the days of Joel going to the gym, doing CrossFit and doing jiu-jitsu and having 2 hours of time to work out daily, those days went away. And I had to figure out new strategies and ways to trigger the right hormones that I could still effectively build lean body mass and also burn weight. And so when you know how to exercise effectively and efficiently, 10 minutes a day is really all you need. And so that's another thing that we teach the clients. I think another big thing that people they underestimate is the value of what we do as a functional medicine detox. And I really strongly believe in this. I've seen such amazing, powerful results because, again, I'm teaching you health, not some quick diet weight loss scheme. And so the liver is such a pivotal and critical part of the body. And when we can decongest the liver, so many good things happen. I've seen, and that's why, again, the weight loss problems that we're seeing in today's world has nothing to do, in my opinion, calories in, calories out. And it has more so to do with the toxic foods that we're exposed to, the metabolic and hormonal imbalances that people have, the environment that we're living in, the deodorants, the fragrances, all these things that leads to inflammation. That inflammation leads to chemical storage in fat cells, which then leads to this excess water weight and more inflammation that they believe is weight gain, but in reality, it's just toxic water weight. So allowing to decongest and open up those drainage pathways and support the liver, so many good things happen because we see clients will have their hormones rebalance. Their cortisol rebalances, cortisol being the stress hormone. If cortisol can rebalance, guess what? You're probably going to sleep better. You're going to be less stressed. You're going to have better temperament with your kids and with your wife or with your husband. It's going to help rebalance your blood sugar. It's going to help take out some of that inflammation from those adipose fat cells, those fat cells in the fat tissues. And so all of these great things happen. And so that is another key piece to what I do. And that is what I would say detox. Nobody is talking about detox. And a lot of people think they're detoxing because they do these juice cleanses and things like that, which by all means, go do a juice cleanse. I could care less. I think it's a great thing to do. You're going to get a lot of micronutrients. You're going to give your body a chance to recover because your digestion's not working. And that's 30% of your energy is just from going to your digestion. So that's beautiful, but you're doing nothing to detox your body. Don't get juice cleanses confused with detoxes. So detox is very pivotal. I do my own detoxes every 3 months just to continually it's just on a system. It's on auto repeat, if you will. And so it just allows me to continually empty my rain barrel because I know that I'm being bombarded by the toxins that I listed. People are spraying things in the air. There's glyphosate, which is a huge toxin that, again, no one's talking about. And if you look at some of the work that Dr. Stephanie Seneff has done, and if for your listeners, if they don't know what glyphosate is, that is what the chemical herbicide known as Roundup that is sprayed on all the crops to prevent the bugs from destroying the crops. Well, that has been shown to be extremely, extremely toxic. And we're talking the gut microbiome is disrupted. They're seeing an increase in autism correlated with glyphosate. Glycine, a molecule that you'll see in collagen, is disrupted from the body's collagen matrix. So guess what? You're going to start seeing a lot of players and professional athletes, and we're already seeing it where, man, they're a little bit more brittle than they used to be. And it just does so much. Think about this. I mentioned it destroys the gut microbiome. It destroys the gut lining. What's that going to do to the brain and some of the neurological things we see? Because we know there's that gut-brain axis. So again, that's how I can't stress enough the importance of detoxing and then doing gentle detoxes on a regular basis just to continually decongest again and just unload your rain barrel because you are just putting so much on a regular basis. And then the last thing I would say is, focusing on your habits and so that it's on and creating systems so that this becomes auto repeated and not something that you have to think about when the brain has to think about. The brain loves the path of least resistance. And so that's why it loves the habits. And sometimes we form a lot of good habits and sometimes we form bad ones. So let's learn the habit formation and how to create those and how to make them sticky. And let's just rinse and repeat that over and over again.
I love that. You're definitely speaking my language. And I'm glad you mentioned glyphosate or Roundup as it's trademarked. There's a weed that grows here in Australia, and I say weed in inverted commas because there's no such thing, a plant that grows here in Australia. And I'm sure it grows worldwide because it was actually the plant that triggered the creation of glyphosate. And it's actually known as fat hen. And fat hen is quite an odd plant because it actually contains all of the essential amino acids, which we've always been told, in mainstream health, you can't get amino acids from your plants, but this plant contains all of them. So that is historically why glyphosate was created.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. Dropping knowledge. Thanks, Magic.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so a lot of the listeners have heard about functional health and about detoxes, and I've spoken about the 3 phases of liver detox. I just want to touch on why, some of these cleansers and detoxes in the mainstream don't work, and that's usually because they're not addressing the phases of liver detox in the correct order. So a lot of listeners might do a detox and get a Herx reaction. And they think, oh, yay, it's working. I'm getting the reaction. But it's because you've either gone too fast or you've missed a phase. How do you explain that to your clients?
Yeah, great question. Honestly, I think you explained it beautifully. Well, here's a couple of things that I think your listeners should understand. And I just never know how deep we're going to get into it on podcast. So I just kind of say detox and I just kind of, overview it and just kind of just glaze over it. So I never know how deep the author or how deep the host wants to go. But, one of the things that I didn't mention was that, our fat cells, and like I said, when we create that inflammation, well, the body is again, very smart. The body knows that, hey, if Joel's ingesting all these toxins, these glyphosates, these herbicides, all these things, the liver will do its best to filter out these toxins. But after a while, the liver cannot keep up with the barrage, right? And we're being bombarded. Here's the thing. If you go to the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency's website, that is our EPA. And that government agency is supposed to be protecting us from things like in our water or our foods and all those kind of things in our air. And if you go to the website, it actually tells you in very point blank, it says you are being bombarded by 86,000 man-made toxins every single year. And that number is going up because a couple of years ago, it was 77,000. So it's just going up. And so again, who has to deal with that? The liver has to deal with it. And it can only take so much. Think about how stressed out we are. I'm not only speaking for Americans. I can't speak for Australians, but we are. That's just how it is. We're not sleeping right. Our nutrition sucks. We're stressed out either financially, marriages, kids, all these things. And then on top of that, you have just the effects of the toxins in our own environment, right? And so again, the liver has to process all those things. And what happens though is, again, like I mentioned, the body's very smart. So the body says, okay, well, I can't take these toxins and store them in Joel's brain because then he'll die. And I can't put them in his heart because then he'll die again. So I know what I'll do. I'll just stick these toxins in his fat cells and we'll just figure out what to do with this later. And so what happens again is if people are losing weight and they're losing it fast, those toxins are coming out of those fat cells now. They got to go somewhere. And so again, you're going to start overburdening the liver. So and then that will also, you'll experience that Herxheimer, like you were saying. The Herxheimer reaction is where a client or yourself will feel a malaise. You'll feel fatigued. You might have a headache. You might even have some gut distress. You just might feel under the weather. And we really don't want that. Sometimes things like that happen, but we don't want that if we can. And so if we can support the liver with phase 1 and phase 2 nutrients, like you suggested, and we can use certain binders, depending on what we're doing, if we can use certain binders to just attach and glob up to the toxins and pull them out and then push them into the intestines and then we poop them out, that is the best that we can do. But if the easiest way to explain the Herxheimer again is if the toxins are coming out too fast, let's say we're supporting you with fulvic minerals and humic acids, and we're supporting your body with these things because we know that they're going to help support the liver and bind to some of these toxins and pull them out. But let's just say we didn't take enough for you, or it could be the opposite. You might take too much. The bottom line is the body, if you don't give that person enough of the binders, let's say to mop up those toxins, well, guess what? Those toxins are going to be flooding around the bloodstream in the body and you're going to feel it. You're going to feel crappy. And we don't want that. So that's where you get this Herxheimer reaction. The good news is for most people, unless there's like some serious autoimmune, you're probably not going to be feeling it for too long a period of time.
Now, we've covered a fair bit today, Joel, but what's something that you haven't told the listeners that you feel they need to hear?
That's a good one. Well, I could give you a selfish plug. I have I'll tell you this. I have my book that's coming out. It's called Ignite, and it is a guide to holistic weight loss. And really, it's beyond weight loss. It's really about unlocking your human potential without having to count macros and go to the gym 6 days a week. So I'll say this. I think the one thing I haven't divulged to your listeners, and I'm on my own quest in my own journey of health and manifestation and really higher consciousness. And I've been doing a lot of energy healing work and a lot of studying of some of the great energy healers. And really what I would tell your listeners is this and I kind of alluded to in the beginning, is that we create this interference in our own world, right? And you don't need a lot of these things. I think we all look for these external things that we want. We need a detox. We need a certain pill. We need to take this so that we can be bigger, stronger, faster. And the reality is you don't need any of that. You need to learn how to quiet your mind. You need to learn about unconditional love and being able to quiet the mind and get in between everything that you fear and desire. Because at that moment, that is it. That is the idea of oneness, and that we're all connected. We are all one. And if you just look at the last couple of years, Magic, you and I were talking offline, there's been a lot of just pain. There's been a lot of suffering. There's been a lot of blaming. And that does none of us good. It just creates this idea of we're separating ourselves when we do that. We're separating ourselves from the oneness. And so I would stress to everybody that you're not your body. You're not your mind. You're nothing. And when you can get to that point of nothingness or oneness, man, you've reached more than any guru or ultimate. Anything you could possibly imagine really is at your fingertips. So I would stress to anybody to start looking and studying metaphysics and learning more about that. I know it's transformed the way I coach and the way I think about healing And again, there's low level healing, then there's high level healing. And I don't want to have anything to do with low level healing. So, and so to each his own, everybody's out there doing their thing, whether they're a healer that's, working in so quote unquote low level healing. That's not for me to judge. There are people who are out there doing amazing things, and that's all that matters. But I would stress everybody to learn about just meditation, quieting your mind, and connect with that idea, that oneness.
I love it. Okay, before we let you go, we love freebies. So what can you offer the listeners, and where can they find it?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I love freebies too, and I love to connect with people. I really do. I love to just have conversations. And I was talking to another coach the other day, and we were saying the same thing. And we'll do things for free because we just like to connect with people and help people. And I think that's why I got into coaching myself. So my offer, hey, anybody that wants to, and I can, send you a link, or if they just go to my website, www.joelevancoaching.com, there you can send me an email. I think there's some links there. You can book an appointment, book a call with me for 30 minutes, and let's just chat about your health and what is the biggest impediment or boulder that is in your way. And let's tackle it. No strings attached. I promise you will walk away from that call with a blueprint of what to do and how to tackle it. And you'll have some clarity on where to go there.
Very generous indeed. Thank you so much for your time today, Joel.
Absolutely, friend. This was great. Let's do it again.
And listeners, thank you for your time. For now, go forth and create your magical life. Thanks for listening today. Please subscribe to hear future episodes, leave a review, and share this podcast. Drop us a line at A Magical Life Podcast on Facebook and let me know what you would like to know more about. You can find us on Instagram at Holistic Natural Health, that's holistic with a W, or at www.holisticnaturalhealth.com.au. That's where you'll access all sorts of articles, freebies, and more.